Sing me a song of a lass that is gone. Say, could that lass be I? Mary of soul, she sailed on a day over the sea to sky. Billow and breeze, islands and seas, mountains of rain and sun. All that was good, all that was fair, all that was mise en. Chante ma l'histoire d'une fille d'autrefois, seule je retire de moi. La mer légère, une page la mer, over the sea to sky.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Television Academy Vice President of Event Production, Barbara Held.
Thank you to Emmy Award-winning composer Bear McCreary, accompanied by his wife, Rhea Yarborough, for that fabulous performance. On behalf of the Television Academy, welcome to Outlander, From Scotland to Paris, a behind-the-scenes journey. Outlander is an epic drama that spans the genres of romance, science fiction, history, and adventure as it follows Claire Randall, a World War II combat nurse who mysteriously traveled back in time to the 1740s. Tonight, we're going to take an inside look at the team who brought Diana Gabaldon's book series to life and the challenges involved in bringing the story from the untamed Scottish Highlands to the refined Paris of the Versailles era. A special thanks to STARZ and its CEO, Chris Albrecht, and Sony Pictures Television for partnering with us tonight. We are thrilled to be here in New York with all of you, and we look forward to a continued program of events throughout the remainder of the year. I'd also like to thank the Television Academy Activities Chair, Dan Berman, along with Barbara Chase and Ben Carter from our event production staff, as well as the St. Regis here in New York, our partner hotel. It's now my absolute pleasure to introduce Emmy Award-winning CBS News correspondent, Michelle Miller, who will be moderating our discussion this evening.
I am thrilled. Thrilled to be here. Are you? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to set the stage for you. 2014, Oahu, Hawaii. I have the worst jet lag a New Yorker can have. And I'm trying to figure out at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock at night, how I'm going to get to bed. You know, my kids, they want to party the next day. I look in my bag, and out pops the electronic press kit of Outlander. Somehow I had just snatched it off the desk of one of my compadres at CBS News. Someone at STARZ was thinking. Accidentally took it on vacation. I figured one episode might do it. Just one. 6 episodes later. I was hooked. So much so, I ran to the bookstore and bought Diana's book. I read the 1,000 pages in 3 days, and I'm a slow reader. I buy the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. I'm just on book 5, so don't hold it against me. I talked to Diana about why number 5 was so hard to get through, but she gave me some advice. Swing right through it. I'm a Sassenach-loving fiend, okay? So when I tell you I've been waiting all my life to say these words, half of that is true. Because I really would love to thank the Academy for this incredible experience. To interact with not only this fabulous audience who are incredible because you guys are just like me, it sounds like, but I get to interact with this amazing group of talented people, the cast and crew of Outlander. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce those people who bring you and will be bringing you for the next week through how many more episodes? 13 episodes. Oh, I like that. 13, the next 13 weeks of sheer television. Well, how should I say it? Well, we'll all be having a great time, won't we? Without further ado, the cast and crew of Outlander, beginning with the composer of the hauntingly beautiful melodies and score, Mr. Bear McCreary.
Hey! Woohoo! Hey, everybody.
The production designer, Gary Steele. Miss Executive Producer herself, Maril Davis. Look at her. Isn't she fabulous? Shoes, ladies, shoes. The incomparable, incredible costume designer, Miss Terry Dresbach. Woo! Loving those boots. Hey. Hugs. Okay. He's so big, you know, he gets 3 titles. The man who runs the show and who is the showrunner, the writer and also executive producer, Mr. Ronald D. Moore. That red-headed, kilt-wearing Scot of a man, Jamie Fraser, Sam Heughan. Right here, right. The beautiful, the brainy, the bodacious, Miss Claire Randall Fraser, Miss Katrina Bell. Mwah. And I tell you, I have to have a little conversation with Miss Diana because I would have had this man in book 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 9. The man who plays both Frank Randall and Jack Randall. Oh, Black Jack Randall. Oh, what a fiend he is. But oh, he plays him so deliciously. Tobias Menzies. Here they are. Can you believe my job right now? So we heard the incredible score in that amazingly haunting song. And Bear, I have to tell you, I know nothing about like Scottish songs, so I have to ask, where is this from? From whence it comes?
You know, it's actually, the Skyboat song is one of the most famous and well-known pieces of Scottish music that exist. Sam, would you back me up on that? I mean,
I agree with you, yes.
had you heard this tune before?
It's terrific, yeah, and I think it's an absolutely great choice. And actually, in season
You did?
2, I think it...
Really?
Well, yes, no, I have.
Well, tell us.
No, honestly,
tell
look,
us
I
the
want you to
truth.
listen. What do you really think? Tell us what you really think that we use this.
I'll sing it now. Oh.
Because, I mean, this is a song you've been hearing since you were like a wee little pup, correct?
A pop.
I'm sorry.
Close enough.
Yes. No, I think, growing up in Scotland, Bonnie Prince Charlie has been romanticized, and I think what Outlander has done especially in this season is actually take away that romanticism and show you the truth about who he was and the consequences of what he did to Scotland. And I think Bear, choosing that song was really clever. It's a beautiful bit of songwriting. And,
well, what was interesting about it is that I picked it initially because it's one of my favorite Scottish folk melodies. I've always loved the melody before I understood that the lyrics were about Bonnie Prince Charlie. And we, the royal we, as in Ron, made one change to the lyrics that I think changed it for the context of our show. Ron, you want to tell them about that?
Well, because the lyrics that we use are lyrics that were written by Robert Louis Stevenson, right? It's a traditional song, and I think there are various lyrics that have been written down.
The Robert Louis Stevenson are the second most famous set of lyrics. But still, he's Robert Louis Stevenson, and I was wary about Kidnapped and Treasure Island and all this stuff, and we were going to change even one letter. I felt a little nervous, but it's
I didn't mind rewriting Robert Louis Stevenson.
Okay, Ron said it. I'm not going to say it, but
No, we changed the line is "Sing me a song of a lad who is gone. Say, could that lad be I?" And we changed it to "lass" because that just felt like it tied it into the story of Claire and her disappearance. "Sing me a song of a lass who is gone" just felt like, well, that becomes our show.
And then setting it in Rhea Yarbrough's voice, the female vocal that opens the title, "Sing Me the Song of the Lass That Is Gone," I think it connects it to Claire's journey. And I've actually always wondered, do you feel that when Katrina, when you watch the show? I mean, I know it's not your voice, but I always feel like it's somehow
I wish that was my voice.
Yeah. We should have got you to sing it.
You've all heard me sing. It was not that great.
That's true.
No, I think it's very evocative of Claire's journey and the emotion that whole story tells. I think it's a perfect fit.
I think to go back to history just for a second, it has to be said that Bonnie Prince Charlie, at this point, is dressed as a woman on the boat to Skye.
That's how he escaped Scotland.
I wonder if that's going to show
His
up.
name.
I think,
Seriously.
Spoiler alert!
in the season.
It's a very 21st century tale.
A man ahead of his
A
time.
man ahead of his time.
I have to say, full disclosure though, Bear, I mean, that beautiful voice belongs to your beautiful wife.
Yes.
And we have quite a few husband-wife collaborators on this show. We have Terry and Ron, who are also married, in case you weren't aware of that. And then we also have friendships that have lasted.
These guys are married.
Yeah.
Well.
Little known fact,
Yeah.
but it's true.
Yeah, it's a real family
Only in the state
business
of
here.
California.
But I'm just curious, though, Bear. I mean, how?
Well, what happened was I had originally sent Ron an instrumental recording of me playing the Sky Boat song on an accordion. And it was before I was even hired on the show. It was just something I had recorded because I grew up.
reached out to you and I'd said, hey, I'm sure you're too busy to do this, but is there any chance you might possibly be interested in this show Outlander that I'm doing about, it's a period piece, has to do with the Jacobites, if you know what that is.
And I was like, I've spent my whole high school years studying Jacobite music. I know all the songs. I went to the Highland Games every year. Check this out, check this out.
Who's that person?
Yeah, and I remember you writing back because you said something like, I've spent the last 6 months telling everybody what a Jacobite is.
Yeah.
And the fact that you even know what that is great.
Doesn't it roll off your tongue, though?
Well, it does. And what was interesting is that I sent Ron that recording, and all you wrote back was, I think that's going to be our main title.
Yeah.
And then I thought, I think I have this job.
Hear, hear. So here's the challenge. We go from Scotland to Paris. How did you change the sound of what we would hear from week to week?
The tone of the show changes so radically. The costumes, the performances, even the camera work. We're in a very different world. And Ron and I spent a lot of time talking about how much do we ground in season 1. We don't want to completely and arbitrarily reinvent the show, but we also have to change and acknowledge our new location, our new tone. I got what I would describe as a crash course, maybe an honorary doctorate in French Baroque music last summer. So I have a viola da gamba player who plays this Baroque instrument called the viola da gamba. And he was in France at the time, and I said, hey, so next season in Outlander, we're gonna go to Paris. Do you think you could record me some music? And he goes, I will record you everything. And I went, okay, cool. He sends me back a zip file. He went in with a friend of his, and they recorded everything. It was 75 pieces of music that he recorded for me, for Outlander, every composer who was working there, and he knew all about what was being performed in the operas, what was performed in the streets, what was performed in the courts. And if anything, I was like, that's awesome, dude. Now whittle it down to your top 5. But that was our starting point, was creating something that's authentic. So when you're in Versailles, you're hearing the music that they would have been playing at that time. You're hearing music written by composers of that time period. And ultimately, I took all that stuff and tried to make something that was true to the emotional journey. Because if it's historically accurate, that's great. But if it doesn't feel like Claire and Jamie are heroes from season 1 in this new environment, then it doesn't work. So I think we pulled that off.
So the actors don't get a chance to sort of like listen in. How is that for you guys? I mean, when you hear it for the first time.
I think we would give Bear great notes. I don't understand why he doesn't ask us.
I know.
Like,
Let's do it.
Not like to get Studio Network notes, because we all
yeah.
So what? You just take it in?
We're getting a band back together, aren't we?
Yeah.
That's a great
No,
idea.
I mean, interestingly, we don't hear anything until the final product, until we, yeah.
It's on the screen.
Until it's on the screen,
much
until the
later
picture's
editions.
locked.
And there's
So it's
nothing wrong with that.
God forbid I insert an opinion in here.
Well, I will say that until you cut the show together, you don't really know what it needs. And I find even reading the scripts and looking at production art that it's not until you get that first cut that, to me, it starts speaking to me. What we need to hear, what are the arcs that are going to need support, what doesn't need support and works on its own. And I think that for me, that first impression is incredibly valuable. And the time I spend with Ron and the editors, just in editorial, looking at it and having a very kind of open discussion about what the show needs at that point, it's incredibly helpful for me.
So I don't get that you had a hard time selling Ron on you. 'Cause you worked with him on Battlestar Galactica, didn't you?
We did this other thing. We did this other thing.
Right. Just like I don't really feel as though, Terry, although Terry has an interesting story, as does Maril, who are his partners in crime, on how Outlander even got to this point. I want you three to talk about.
No, just us.
Okay. Let them explain how you convinced this man that this was the project for him.
Well, it was really funny because I had read this book when it first came out. And
20-something years ago.
I mean, like 100 years. And I had this, one of those decrepit versions that everybody has, right? Just like, and we're going somewhere.
More than one.
I do have more.
When we moved houses, I had to pack up all the books, and I found like 5 copies of every book in
There's
various
that story.
states of.
Yeah, that was the one I was about to tell. And and he goes, "What is this?" And I'm like, "It's Outlander. You need to make it into a movie." And he goes, "Yeah, okay." So whatever. then we go to
Well,
dinner.
I didn't know that part of it, actually.
Yeah.
And we were at a dinner, and we were just talking about passion projects. And I said, actually, Matt Roberts, who works on the show, had years ago given the book to me. And I said, I really want to do this show called Outlander, and I think it'd be great for us. And I didn't realize at the time Terry knew the books, too.
And we'd known each other forever.
And then Ron seemed interested, and we were talking about it the rest of the night. And then after that, we tracked down the rights holders, and Ron and I went in and had a meeting, and we walked out of there, and they really wanted to do movies, not TV. And I said to Ron, you know what, you just can't do these in movie format. It's just, there's too much material, you lose too much. So reluctantly, we walked away, and then I kept checking in though every once in a while, because I was like, I just didn't want to leave it. And then one time I checked in, and they were interested in doing TV, so we went back in, and here
When
we
you
are.
say they, do you mean Diana?
No, it was Jim Kohlberg. He had the rights, and we went in and met with the president of his company, and then they were interested, so we had a great meeting, and then took it to Sony, Chris Parnell, who works at Sony, was a great advocate, and went right out and got the books on tape and listened in the car, and would call me and be like, oh my God, I'm blushing in the car right now. And then we went to STARZ, and they were really the only network that when we walked in with this huge stack of books, all of the executives in the meeting had read the first book.
Wow.
And if I may, we all wanted, we were all like, let's do this. This is our favorite book. But we were like, it's not going to happen. And this one here was a dog with a bone. I mean, she just was not letting go. She wasn't letting go. She just kept at it.
So, Terry, your pillow talk had nothing to do with it?
Well, that's at the heart of everything.
So I have to talk, because so much of what we all love about not only the sound of Outlander, the words and the dialogue, but we love to look. It is such a rich, tapestry of vivid, amazingly beautiful scenes of color and texture and all of it. And Terry, I want you to stand up because
I better.
Because really, Terry, when we talk, there are two parts to this. There's the set design, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, but there's the costumes. And Terry has graciously agreed to share some of what we will be seeing in season 2 with us at this very moment. So Terry, I want you to take it away and give us an idea.
I can lean on him. Are you
Describe what we are seeing here.
He's not kidding. I want Ron to come. Okay.
Let's take a look.
Yeah. Well, our challenge in season 2 was to take these guys, these wild, crazy, filthy Highlanders, and move them to one of the most decorative and documented periods of time. And, we set a really high bar for ourselves in season 1 of trying to be really authentic, and then that was like putting our heads under the guillotine because then we had to do this. And, everything's embroidered and ribboned, and it's just crazy. And so it was a monumental task to figure out how we were going to go about this as a very small team. Embroidery was one of the big points. And we have a very green team. We have a young team. We have a lot of our people have never done film or television before. So when we got to various points, we would have kids straight out of college who'd been 2 years on our show who were sculptors and painters who were shoving in front of embroidery machines. And they're creating 18th century embroidered fabrics. And yeah. It's remarkable work. I look at it today and just go, I don't really know how we did this, and we did it with people who didn't know how, had never done it before. And it's such a testimony to the people on our team. The other thing was that we didn't have enough people to do all the embroidery on the show. We made thousands of costumes, so we started exploring other ways of handling it. And one of the main things that jumped out at us was doing painted fabrics. So a lot of you have seen some of our things out there on the internet. We started painting. And that opened up a whole new exciting world. What we learned at this point is that we were just going to have to learn on our feet how to do absolutely everything. And because there's no store. There's no store that sells 18th century fabric or 18th century shoes or hats, or freaking buttons or anything else. So suddenly you've got to do 1 million shoes. There's the red shoes. And there's a pair of boots that everybody's going to be very excited about. We made purses, we made fans, we made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hats, corsets, petticoats. You know, we dress our extras and our cast from the skin up. And we just made thousands and thousands of costumes. I don't really know how we did it. It's a blur. I look at these pictures and I sort of see them the way you do. I don't really know. I really don't know how we did it because we had to make it all. And the details have to be right. Because one of our extras, like this lovely lady, might be standing next to Kat, and we can't have you go, oh, she must be an extra because her costume's crap. So, so it's all about these details, and it takes us to this place.
How long? Terry, I have to ask, was it tougher? I mean, it looks tougher making this season, second season.
Oh, God.
And how much longer did it take?
Well, you know, one of Katrina's dresses in season 1 would take about 2 weeks, and these take a couple months. So it's really insane. But it's about the details, you know? It's about creating a world. You have to believe you're in 18th century Paris. We don't want you to feel like you might be watching a runway show. We want you to feel like you're there. Because in Paris, a robe is a robe. You know, I mean, that's a robe. And every costume is done to this incredible detail. It's really kind of amazing. And our men. You know, our men, everybody's Prince, right?
Not a prince, but Prince.
No, Prince. Not a Prince. Prince. You know Prince. And there's a little moment of fear as we dress the guys in some of these costumes, except for King Louis.
I mean, I have to say, I was, you know, terrified.
Oh, we're getting to you.
Yeah.
Because he was terrified.
Now, is that the costume I tried on, my dear?
Yeah, you did. You
Oh,
tried that one
did
on.
it feel
That's
good?
That's amazing. And then the second challenge we had were our cast. And speaking of Sam Hewen, we had to take this guy, and I knew that there was no way I was putting him in pink silk with lavender legs. And when he came in, he had this look of sheer terror on his face, and I said, don't worry. Don't worry. Essentially with Sam, what we did was we went with the most classic and elegant of any man's possible costume throughout history. A simple black suit and a white shirt.
Lovely.
And he pulls it off quite well. It's very elegant. All we had left to do at that point was to make the sexiest bandage ever.
Good.
Now, for Kat, we had a whole other situation. Because Kat and I had worked really closely on developing Claire, and one of the things we really wanted to do is make sure that no matter what century she happened to be in, she was always Claire. She's a strong, modern woman from the 1940s. And so, yeah, she always has pockets. So when it came time for us to move us to the second season, I looked to 1946. Because that is the essence of where we try to go. It's a show about time travel. In the very, very beginning, we decided that we needed to make sure we stayed there. And Christian Dior in 1945 looked back to the 18th and 19th century and took those costumes and created what's called the New Look. And the New Look was essentially 18th century costumes stripped bare of all of the crap, all of the fuss, all of the muss. And it just goes with a very clean silhouette, and that was exactly where we wanted to go. So what he was doing was perfect for our story and perfect for us. The bar suit was his most iconic costume. It's been seen a lot. Fashion people know it. It's been played over and over again. There's been museum exhibits on it, and it's so famous that even Barbie got one. And we figured if it was good enough for Barbie, it was good enough for Claire. And
this is one of my favorites. I absolutely love it.
People have been asking me what my favorite costume is, and I haven't been telling it because you guys are seeing it for the first time here tonight. It's magnificent. It's really fantastic, and it set the tone for the entire season for her. It really... And from there, we just kept going. And we looked to famous designers of the 40s, Balenciaga, Balmain, Dior, and we just kept going back to the 40s, going back to creating that tone, that feel, so that whenever you see her, she looks a little bit wrong. There's been a little chatter on the internet about why is she wearing that stuff? There's a reason, because she should always be a very beautiful fish out of water. She should always be a stranger in a strange land and slightly alien. Not alien enough that anybody burns her at the stake, like last season, but still, you know, just, you want to feel that she's out of place. This costume is quintessentially a late 1940s gown, but it works. It's one of my favorites. It's Kat's favorite.
Yeah.
So we just kind of kept going along that path. Wow. There's my embroidery team again.
How could she afford all of this on I mean, my goodness.
My money.
I bankrupted Jamie's uncle.
And we did the same thing with the red dress. So the red
The
dress
red
is,
dress.
The red dress is a key part of the story that if we hadn't done it, they would have burned us at the stake. So, you know, it's a very simple, elegant dress, but when you dress in somebody like Katrina Bauer, you really don't need to gild the lily. You just need to let her rock it pretty hard. There's the shoes. There's the shoes. I'm pushing for a line of these shoes. Because when this woman wears your design, you just don't need to do much. She is the jewel. She really is. And that's our world.
Oh my God.
That's us for season 2.
So, that is costume porn if I have ever seen it.
It kind of is.
So that is like the feast for our eyes. What does it feel like to wear it?
It's amazing. I mean, Terry, it was so incredible because Terry snuck in some fittings at the end of season 1. And yeah, we were very sneaky about it. But it was beautiful because all of a sudden you saw this vision board that she had, and it was all these beautiful bruised colors, and just, it was so different to what we were doing. But, you know, then she had some mock-ups in toile, and you kind of get a sense of maybe the shape, but you don't realize how stunning they're going to be. And when I came back and I did all my fittings for season 2 and I saw them, I mean, each one is a piece of couture. And what was so beautiful and what we talked about, it was this amazing opportunity for Claire, the character, to explore her femininity for the first time. I mean, when we met her for the first time in the 40s, there was still rationing. You know, she had bought one new nightgown.
Yeah.
And that was it. You know, she was still a woman who was very much under this kind of austere system.
And that nightgown was off when she got her husband Tobias. Man.
Didn't stay on for very long.
Damn right it was.
But being
Good
able
job.
But being able to wear these pieces, I mean, it was so exciting and new in the beginning. You know, after a while, I wanted to hang out with the boys and sit on the floor, and I wasn't allowed to. But
she wasn't allowed to do anything. You know? It's like, don't go through that doorway.
I'd say that Terry always, she approaches it through character and telling a story, and I think that's what we owe to you, because that first and foremost was, well, even in season 1 was, you know, you bring us in, us sort of scared actors, or like, you know, with our fears and you know, inhibitions and everything, and you work with us and you help us build this character through levels, and it's great for an actor to have that gift.
That's what costume design is. It's not about pretty clothes, except, you know, every once in a while you get on a show where they go, make as many pretty clothes as you can, but even so, it's still just about creating characters and creating stories, and if these guys don't feel it, they are the characters. If it's not right for them, then we don't do it.
I mean, they are actors, but I mean, in period pieces, here you are in a skirt. I'm sorry, kilt.
Hey.
You,
Careful.
I can take you down, baby. I'm from South Central LA.
You know what? She might be able to.
Sounds like a challenge.
But seriously though, and the costumes in Paris for the second season are very feminine. Blackjack Randall gets to be, you know, the soldier, the man who is, well, we know what kind of man you are as Blackjack, but to have such a sweeping from the 1940s through 1745, what was it like for you to have two characters to play in costume in Terry's grandeur?
Yeah, I think, I mean, costume really helped, I think, in telling the story of these two different people.
Very different people.
Yeah, very different people. And so, yeah, I feel very indebted to Terry for helping in that challenge of kind of delineating and realizing both of these men. I mean, Ron has told the story before of the first costume fitting for Jack and how that costume definitely informed how I stood and how I kind of held myself. Whereas the sort of costumes for Frank were just less sort of structured, so that lent itself to slightly more modern sort of physicality. And so those things really all fed in, I think, to certainly the physical characterization of them.
It was very funny. The first time I saw, I'd done all the fittings with Tobias as Blackjack, so I'd seen him in his red coat uniform. And I walked on stage for the camera test, and you were out there. I don't know if you remember this, and but you'd had the wig, and you had the hair and makeup, and you were in persona. And I didn't know who he was. I did not know who he was. I was like, is that his double? And I went, oh my God, that's Tobias. And that's when you know that you've melded, you know, when you sort of overlap each other, and it becomes something almost like alchemy.
Yeah. That's one of the things we talked about very early days was, okay, we're not going to do big makeup changes in these two characters. We're not going to do, one has a beard, or one has a missing eye, or we're not going to do something, right? I mean, because you've seen that kind of stuff done before. It was going to be Tobias, and you would recognize him as both men, and it was up to him, and it was up to the costume to sort of delineate these two characters from each other.
Yeah, yeah.
So lots of fun.
Yes,
Lots of
fun.
intensity.
Some intensity, yes.
Did you all feel pretty? I'm sorry, you're out of this. Did you feel the part immediately?
I think it's fair, you know, I just said earlier, but I was terrified, you know, season
terrified.
2. I you know, had this in my mind, you know, a costume drama and big frilly cuffs and something very arch, and that's absolutely not what we've got here in Outlander in season 2. And I think Terry, you know, was pivotal to that. You know, I think Jamie's character is reflected in his costume. I think he's playing someone else, but I think he's sort of almost like a shadow of himself. He's covered up, he's contained, he's hiding some of his brilliance.
If not, we would be dazzled and frightened by his brilliance.
Well, that is true, yes.
My favorite line from
Because
Jamie
that's what
is...
Sam said when he came in. Cover me up. Hide me.
Sam likes to
Absolutely. But I think, you know, and then actually, you know, going back to the second half of the season, which is, you know, we're back in Scotland, and, you know, it's a great counterpoint to the first half in all this sort of, you know, beautiful costume and very voluptuous and very, very passionate. And in the second half, we're back in sort of Scotland, and there's mud and blood. And
the best part was that they were always going, oh God, let's get back to Scotland. Let's get back to Scotland. We want to roll in the mud. And then I was like, careful what you ask for. Because we are going back. And about 2 days later, they were like, oh, it's freezing. It's wet.
It was winter in
It was
Scotland.
winter.
Yeah.
It's snow. Yeah.
But it was amazing when we did go back to Scotland. You know, Terry had this task of like how to keep me warm, and it was this beautiful. She came up with this idea of using the kilt as Claire's like overcoat. So we had an Arisade, and it's so gorgeous the way it's draped around, and it's a utility item as well, and it just became such a great part of
Well,
Claire's
it's inspired
character.
by the men. It was like, okay, this is, you know, men are always talking about how warm they are in their costumes. How am I going to keep cat? Oh, I'm going to give her a kilt too.
But it was great because it also it tied in so much with where that character is at the time, and Jamie and Claire are such equals, you know, when the battles are happening, and it just was a beautiful, I don't know, title.
And we just let her work with it. We just give her this hunk of fabric and go, you know,
Do
have
what you
fun.
want. I was
Do
like,
what
really?
you want. Go for it.
Well, if you remember when I came to interview you, how did I know? I bought this, what I thought was a pretty cool looking kilty thing. And
She wore a plaid.
in New Orleans of all places, and I get to the set and they, lovely Arisaid.
Yeah.
It was gorgeous, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I almost called you Jamie. I get lost in this. Sam.
I think I asked you where you got it from.
Yeah. And he laughed.
As did I.
I think
5 minutes later.
Yeah.
you looked
that
tremendous.
rack over
And it
there.
was so adorable that you
Yeah,
did
that was
that.
amazing.
Thank
You worked
you.
very, very well.
So Ron, I have to say, so we talked about costumes, music. We have to talk about this world you create. And I'm curious because so much of it is so beautifully laid out in the books. Who did you immediately think of when you said, set design, who will create my world for me?
I put a long list together, looked around, I threw a dart at a board. Actually, I've known Gary for many years, and Gary and Terry have worked how long?
2 centuries.
Thousands of years.
Meryl, did you have any say in this?
I said, Gary,
Oh, no.
again? Actually, Ron and I did a pilot with Gary a couple years ago.
And they still hired him.
We still wanted him.
It was like, yeah, we should try to get Gary to do this, and Gary and Terry working together, that would be a great combination, and it just all kind of...
Well, and he and I watched Dangerous Liaisons about 4,000 times, but we could do that.
We wanted it bad.
We were like 12.
Was it your ability to see one another's plan, one another's design, one another's eye? Was that key? Was it that key to the selection?
We both kind of always will gravitate toward the same thing, whether we're out looking at antiques or pieces of art or cars or whatever.
Magazines.
Magazines. We're both magazine whores, sorry, but we are. We would always gravitate toward the same thing, be it a doorknob or whatever. We both love detail is what it really comes down to. Yeah. And I think you read the book and said, you've got to read this book.
Oh, I made you, that's right, I made you read it.
She bought me a copy, said, now read the damn thing so we can talk about it. And I'm like,
That's true, I forgot
really,
that.
Terry? She goes, I'm serious.
Read the book.
So I read the book and we
And
talked
then
about it.
he's like, oh my God.
I go, we gotta make this, somebody please make this into a movie. And
So
boom, here we are 20-something years later and we lucked
20,
out.
oh, it took 20 years.
It was a long time.
Wow.
Well, we've been best friends for almost 30 years. Yeah, for a long time.
Long time.
So you basically got all these people together, Terry, and you just connived your way into this production.
I married him to get the book made. It's all a big plot.
I said whatever it takes.
It's all downhill from here.
Oh, yeah.
That's okay. We got 8 or 9 more books
I know.
for our marriage to last.
Don't keep saying that.
So Gary, very different, I'm assuming here, very different plan of action from season 1 to season 2. I mean, you were roaming the Scottish hillsides, and it was all kind of laid out there. You could say, oh, we got a tree here, we have a nice grassy. I'm teasing. Seriously though, how different and how much more of a plan did you have to come up with?
Well, our job was to transport us and our actors, our amazing actors, to 18th century Paris, which was, of course, one of the most beautiful periods for art, architecture, fashion, everything. It really, really was an amazing period. And actually, Terry and I used to always say, we've got to do something 18th century someday. We really, really got to. And to be truthful, I think for both of us, this is a dream project, a total dream project, because it's amazing detail. And so we started designing as soon as we heard that we were probably picked up, and that was season 1, and we started doing models and sketches and a lookbook.
Can we see some of season 2?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Maybe.
So we're going to show you parts of all of the Paris apartment and other assorted sets for our season 2. This is all on stage. Starts with models. We show Ron the models. We show him sketches of models. He signs off on them, hopefully, and then we move forward. This is the outside of that big set of the Paris apartment. That's the oval staircase. That's a courtyard, which I fought to get because I wanted to have backings outside of each window. Each room looked over the court so we could see Claire and Jamie coming through their carriage and through the front door, and they would crane up and go right into the parlor.
And that's a set.
And he makes all those cobblestones.
Wow.
We want to be able to see from the front door all the way through, carry them up into the stair, and the camera could even come up through the windows above and shoot through.
It's all practical. It's like one big continuous set. You can walk all the way from the courtyard all the way through the place.
How difficult is it to actually create that?
It's about 115 people of, from plastermen, construction men, painters, scenic artists, tons of people working. They're all artisans, and they're all very, very excited about the show because they're all artists and they love this.
The furniture, the paneling, the tapestry, it all looks so incredibly real, but that can't possibly be mahogany. And
it's all scenic to look. It's cheap wood painted to look like what we need it to be. Like these giant tapestries were printed on canvas so that we could surround the sets. All the hallways are covered in tapestries that we got permission from museums to get the rights to use their images and blow it up. This is the dining room. This room also is the bedroom. All those panels you see are covered in silk. The panels pop out. You put in velvet fabric panels, go back in, and it turns into their bedroom redressed. Back to the living room parlor.
what was happening there?
Here we're in the living room parlor again.
Yeah, just your average
That's
study.
the beginning of it. Bedroom.
Now, all of this is true candlelight?
Everything is lit with candles and fires in the fireplace and chandeliers because it has to look, of course, period correct, and also it makes it look, beautiful.
Yeah, we wanted really brilliant colors to come out of the darkness.
Exactly. Almost all the colors are dark and deep and rich. That's the built-in day bed. We actually built that for Claire, but he got in it first. This is the courtyard again. It played several different ways. Now it's back to Jamie and Claire's, and this is when it says the entry into apothecary for Master Raymond. That's the front door to Master Raymond's, which is on this set. You go inside, that is on another stage, because this set is huge. That's Master Raymond's apothecary model.
He has little tiny people in there.
Little
that
tiny
move
people.
around.
This is Master Raymond's shop, filled with all kinds of great stuff.
It's an amazing, amazing place.
Oh my goodness, stage is
Tons of detail on all these sets, which is really the most fun part, doing all the detail. And I have to admit, doing a little bit of gold is quite fun.
You can never have too much gold.
Never have too much gold, right, Tara?
Yep, Kara.
We actually had an alligator because all the research showed that apothecaries had alligators because this was the Enlightenment and people were interested in everything from fossils to anything exotic. This is the upscale brothel.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I mean, how did you figure out what a brothel looked like in the 18th century?
He's never been in one.
Research.
I mean, are there paintings? Are there, first-hand
weren't.
descriptions?
It was really more paintings or etchings of low end, but this had to be high end because the prince was here and Jamie was always going to have drinks with the prince, making their deals.
Now, Tobias, I'll get to this question in a moment.
Louise's apartment. It's the most frilly set of all because to go with the costumes are probably the most frilly part for Louise also, right?
Yeah, until you painted the walls purple. Sorry.
So was this the study that was seconding?
That was for Louise.
Okay. So that was a completely different room. That
this
didn't
is stuff
second.
for Versailles, for parties that we had for Versailles.
Is this at Versailles? No. This is
Actually, this
Scotland.
is a location in Scotland.
And Paris is shot in Prague.
For exterior streets.
Yes.
The rest of it in Scotland.
This
in
is a
the
location.
rest in Scotland.
This was a location in the south of England. And then we also did some location work in Scotland, and we also did location work in Prague. So it was sort of 3 countries combined to do Versailles.
Look at that.
That's great.
Because we
This
make a
is
movie
King's Chamber.
every episode.
Back on stage. This was actually the Paris apartment parlor redone to be the King's Chamber to save money because it all cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
Fireplace was built by our plastermen. They do an amazing job. They're artists. These murals came from the Louvre, or they're copies of the murals in the Louvre. Star Chamber is my favorite set of all, I think.
Look at that. Look at that.
God. Secret door, Claire being let in. When I showed Ron the model of this set, he said, "You want to do what?" And I said, "I want to have a dome with light coming through and lands on Claire." She walks, and he said, "You want to do what?" I said, "I want to build a dome with all these holes piercing." He goes, "What?" And then finally he goes, "Build it."
Look at that. Look at that.
This was fun.
Yeah.
Fun set. Costumes are amazing.
He was so excited. He would call me up and he'd go, "Good, we're gonna do it. Look what we're gonna do."
We were always calling each other, "Come down, come look at this." You know, that's what we do.
Freaking brilliant.
Now,
I want to kill him.
so
half the time.
I've actually been in Claire and Jamie's bedroom. With Jamie. I'm sorry, with Sam.
That's how rumors start, to be honest. Nothing happens.
I have proof, folks. Pictures.
Yeah, you did. Okay.
But all that to say, and I have to, it's so incredible about not just what you see in person, the incredible colors and the textures, and I keep talking about that, but how important is it for your cinematographer to be on the same note as you? Because, you know, when I looked at the video of what we shot, I was blown away. It was even more vivid. So certain colors don't necessarily translate well.
No.
To be truthful, sometimes if there's time and money, we have camera tests at the beginning of the season, which, to be truthful for Terry and I, it's very helpful because the lighting, the way they light, each DP is different. Sometimes they light darker than others. They're all amazing. They're all really talented. We love them.
Plus, we discovered when we first started that silk changes color on camera. And it was like, wait a minute, that's not supposed to be that color. And then there's a lot of kind of, you know, rejigging and scrambling.
Things that we'd covered couches with, you know, amazing cut velvet, blue velvet, and, you know, everything gets shown to each department so it all works. And we saw it on the monitor.
It's
it was
purple.
Purple
And you're just
lavender.
like, oh,
and we were
God.
both like, oh my God. Jamie and Claire's apartment can't
be purple.
Purple.
And then there's a lot of either one of us calling the other one going, "Go to the set quick!" And we're like running, and the DPs are like, "Oh no, here they come again."
Oh yeah, they saw our faces and they're like, "What?"
What?
We go,
What?
"Purple, really?"
Yeah. It looks good. No.
So, you know, back to that question of the visual and how it impacts your performances. I mean, did you all have a favorite set that sort of transformed you back into that time? Because I tell you, that bedroom and actually even the costume, it wasn't a costume, this was a jacket you were wearing for our interview. It looked like a period piece. And I found myself literally being thrown back in time. There was a haze around Sam, and I literally...
It's always a haze around Sam.
No, I'm totally
Not always
immune.
pleasant haze.
But no, seriously, because I really,
golden glow.
there was a second where I felt transported. Thank you. So,
I mean, definitely the sets have such a huge influence on our performances. What we do is make believe. So much of our performance is imagination. And when you can walk into a set and you feel like it's real and you're in that actual place, so much of your imagination is freed up then for the rest of the stuff that we have to think about. You know, each of the sets Gary builds, you know, it's hard to choose one. Each are so amazing. Master Raymond's Apothecary is, it's just this incredible, I could spend hours in there, and you know, the horrible thing is when you're an actor, you get shoved on, you have to work, and then you get pulled to do something else. You're like, but I want to see everything. You know, the Star Chamber was amazing. I mean, the floor all looked like the most beautiful polished marble, but it's all painted, right? All the panels, I mean, it looks like, you know, you feel like it should be echoing for hours. And it's, you know, it's just, it's incredible what they do. I mean, I'm blown away always.
What's really upsetting as well is that sometimes after even an episode or a couple of episodes, they break it down and they build another one. And I mean, season 1, we had the Great Hall and all these amazing sets. And these guys go in and they're like, right, we're done with that. Changing something else. And you're like, how can you do that? This needs to be in a museum or something. Or also, we wondered if you do our houses. I mean,
It would be made out of really cheap plywood.
It would look
It looked really good until you touched it.
Don't lean on it.
How many of you have seen the first episode? For a gentleman who isn't in a lot of the show, I'd have to say, give it up for Mr. Menzies. And I want to, you know, I love you too, Sam, but I just, you know, you get all the love all the time. Poor guy's a bad guy, but I have to ask, that was some of the most intense acting. And sometimes I'm at a loss for words. Can you help me out here, Ron?
No.
He's been teasing me all night. But where did you pull that from?
Are you talking about this episode at the beginning of the season?
Second season.
Yeah.
And Claire comes back to you, and you're trying to figure out. And you're in a Stark hospital. None of this like elaborate.
That cat might have been out of the bag. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it's. One of the great things about this project is we have some really rich characters and increasingly an amazing story. You know, the sort of the incremental nature. We've had 16 hours of story, and so there's a lot to pay off. For instance, in the stuff that we show at the beginning of season 2, it's rich ground. There's already a lot been planted in it. So, so I think that gives us. I mean, I think you'd agree. That gives us so much to work with. And then, we're also, very indebted to Ron and his writers to give us, the opportunity and the words and the space to sort of, I suppose, express these characters and do them justice. And we're also indebted to the editing. All these things feed in. And I suppose on the day, you just hope, you try and go there and hope it's, you try and look at each other. I try and look at Kat and mean it.
I try not to pull funny faces.
She tries not to pull a funny face. And sort of you cross your fingers, yeah.
I mean, he's being very modest there, but I think, Tobias is absolutely amazing in that first episode. And as you just said also, I think some of the best writing I've seen actually are those from Ron.
Well, that was a beautiful segue, Sam. I mean, seriously though, because, and I have to ask Ron, because we have fans of both the series and the book here. So much of you are so true to this set of novels. Where do you find yourself leading or leaning in and leaning out in the writing process?
Well, it's complicated. This project is the first time I've done an adaptation as opposed to an original series, and it's a different set of muscles that you use in the writer's room, I find. A lot of the credit goes to our writing staff. There's a staff we all meet together and we break each episode down into its components before it's written by anybody. And you always start with the book order of events. We have people that, our assistants, break down the book in every chapter, every scene. We put all the book events up on the board in the order that they occurred in the book. And then you say, all right, let's cut the book up into, in season 2, 13 pieces. All right, this is this hour, this is that hour, this is that hour. And then you sort of go in and say, all right, now let's just talk about this particular episode. These are the general events that have to happen in here. How does that become an hour of television? Because the experience of reading the book is different than the experience of watching the show. When you're reading the book, the author, Diana Gabaldon, who of course started it all, and yes, this is her story. We're trying to do our best version of it. But when you're reading the book, Diana's talking to you directly, and she's speaking to you, and she can just sort of take a moment and then she'll describe, the way the sky looks, or she'll take a couple pages and sort of talk about 18th century medicine or whatever. And in the television series, it's a different experience. It's a dramatic form, it's a visual form, and it has a different sort of narrative involved. And so you have to sort of structure the show. How has this become an hour of television? What's the rhythm of this show? Okay, these are the major events. All right, the biggest event, we want to move sort of over here. We want to have something in the middle. How are we going to open? What's this episode about? These are still the same events we're talking about, but what is the theme of this particular episode? What are we exploring in this? How does this connect to the episodes on either side of it? So it's this whole process that you have to kind of go through to carve each and every episode. And then there's that point where, like say for the episode 1, I took then the outline that we had broken in the room, and then I go off and I write the script from that. And in that particular episode, it was like the second half, once they got to, I'm saying that like you just watched it, but I saw it last night, so sorry.
No spoilers,
I know.
Spoilers.
There's like half of the episode, I could turn to the book and say, okay, what's the dialogue from the book that can help me inform these individual scenes? And the first half was sort of constructed from references in different books and different pieces of backstory, so it was more of an original piece. And they both have their joys. There's a joy in sort of taking a section of the book on the page and constructing, the narrative out of it. And there's a joy in just sort of saying, well, this is sort of an open field where Diana suggested some things or we're inventing something, so I'll do something original and try to marry them together. So I don't know that I really have a preference one to the other. It's the joy of the show is ultimately in the whole. To me, as the showrunner, I like being involved from the story to the production to post with Bear, and ultimately in sound and in color. My joy in doing the show is creating the whole thing and seeing how it then becomes a piece of television for everybody to watch.
Well, I have to tell you, I asked Diana, I said, it has got to be a difficult position to be in, to see your work being recreated by someone for a completely different medium. What did you like and what don't you like? And I don't remember her saying anything she didn't like, so that's one. Very good. What she loved that you did was Rupert and
Angus.
Angus is the two characters and how you just fleshed them out. And when did that light bulb go off for you in addition to the wedding?
Well, the Rupert and Angus really were something that Ira Bear, who was one of our writers the first 2 seasons, really, he focused on those 2 characters quickly and said, he wanted some guys around Jamie in the Highlander world. He's like, there's got to be some guys. There's some guys that are doing guy things. And Ira's a big fan of John Ford and John Ford Westerns and that whole tradition. And they kind of came out of that. You could kind of see Rupert and Angus in the cavalry, sitting on horses in the back. And they're those guys that are like, busting on each other but are soldiers and are really going to be there when you need them. And he just sort of believed in them and he kept riding towards them. And then they just became beloved figures that we all just said, yeah, Rupert and Angus, man. I want to do a Rupert and Angus scene. It's just kind of fun.
So this is a story of Claire. It's a story of a woman, a modern woman. It's a story through the lens of a very strong female perspective. And what is so interesting about your cast and crew is, yeah, you have lots of men, but Maril, you know, you have women writers, women executive producers. How much were you able to, and Ron, you as well, how important was the voice and in the production as a whole to make sure that it was authentic?
Well, I mean, when we kind of set out to bring the writers together, I think we did make a conscious decision to, one, have a couple people who had read the books and were fans, and then a couple people who were new to the book series. We felt that that mixture would be important. But I think we also wanted both voices in the room. I think people would be surprised sometimes to find that things they think a woman wrote, actually a man wrote in our room, and vice versa. I think sometimes people assume, oh, a woman had to have written that sex scene. That's not always the case.
Really?
We have a very, I think you'd be surprised. We have a lot of discussions in the room, sometimes heated, but there are different perspectives, and it's not always what you imagine. But, you know, I think, you know, obviously Ron likes strong women, and
yes.
And we certainly worked together for a while. I like to say I'm kind of always nagging Ron in one ear, and then, you know, Terry's like,
poor man.
So, yeah. But, you know, Ron also has a tradition of writing and kind of gravitating towards strong female characters, certainly Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica. So I just think it's just something, and obviously I do as well, so I think it's just something we've kind of gravitated towards. And obviously Claire was an obvious choice. She's such a go-getter, ball-buster, intelligent, funny. It's hard not to love her and want to get behind her.
So whose idea was the sex scene with the dagger?
That's actually from the book.
That's from the book.
Matt Roberts wrote that scene and kind of put his own twist on it, but
yeah, there was a
that's actually
twist.
from the book. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know what he just kind of added some stuff and certainly was, you know, the choreography of it. Actually, that was Sam and Katrina's first sex scene.
Really?
So it was kind of awkward because we shot out of order, so it wasn't actually the wedding episode. That scene from episode 9, which was pretty intense, was the first scene. So I remember we were all a little nervous, and
go big or go home.
I'm sure they were as well. So yeah, it was not an easy
Go big or go home.
I love that scene.
I think I got carpet burns.
I seem to remember a lot of carpet burns from that. There was somebody's bright idea to stage it on the floor, and there was a beautiful antique carpet. It was very threadbare, and yeah, there's lots of carpet burns.
That's a panel first.
Sethanac.
Well, and the fact that she had a dagger is pretty terrifying.
Yeah, I would imagine. I'm curious, do you guys have any big disagreements over how you developed this?
Me and Ron?
Of course you and Ron.
I was like,
oh,
anyone else?
Terry and Ron,
me
you and Gary, anyone here?
You know, Ron and I have worked together a long time, 13, 15, something like that, crazy years. Honestly, this is the first show I think we've ever had major disagreements on. I think our largest disagreement this year was around episode 107, The Wedding. He had come back from editing, and we were in our Scotland office, and he mentioned to me that he thought 2 lines in that show probably we didn't need. And I said, what lines are those? And he said, it's Jamie's, I said I was a monk, not a virgin. And
It's my favorite line!
And if I find I need help, I'll ask for it. And I said, Ron, those are iconic lines. I said, plus, I'm
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then he came home, and I was like, what?
I said, I'm sorry, also, Sam, delivered those lines in an amazing
Unbelievably
way.
well.
I said, you cannot cut those scenes. I said, we had actually a pretty large, heated discussion about it, and then kind of went our separate ways, and then the next day came back and was like, we'll do it. But, you know, sometimes it's different perspectives, and sometimes I have to trust Ron's vision, and sometimes I have to fight for certain things as a fan, kind of the fan girl in me.
Well, that's
Ron, what were you thinking?
Fundamental, well, exactly. Look, I saw it, and it's one of those times, you're sitting in the edit, you've read the script, you've seen the dailies, you've seen the cut, and when I watched it, I went, that's the most egotistical thing I have ever heard a man say. He's really going to say this to this woman? She's going to hate him. This is like, who says that? If I need any help, I'll ask for it. And I was like, man.
That's just how it is.
That's exactly how you delivered it, too.
And it was
I said, Ron, you don't understand.
No, you said, Ron, you don't understand women. And that was the line that got it in the show. I was like, well, maybe I don't understand women, okay.
It gave Claire the perfect opportunity to show him what he needed to do.
Well, this is, what we're talking about is really what the fundamental argument is in the writer's room. And when we put the writer's room together, we not only decided let's have half men and half women, we also said let's have half fans and half non-fans. Because the biggest question of an adaptation is what do you keep and what do you change? And that's the argument that we have in the room every day, day after day after day. And you need to have that argument because we have two audiences every week. We have the audience that knows and loves the books. We have the audience that doesn't know from the books. And you have to be able to deliver this kind of show to both of them. So the argument is constantly about what do you keep and what do you change? How important is this? Is this important just to people who like the books, or is this important to people who are watching the show for the first time and don't know what the reference is? And sometimes it's okay to put things in that are only for fans of the book, because it doesn't really, it's like, okay, there's no harm in the story to sort of mentioning that or doing that thing. And people who read the books will get it. They'll get the wink that we're giving towards the material. And the general fans, it just flies past them. It doesn't matter. And then there's other times where you're going, well, if you put that in, it's really confusing, or it doesn't track with, say, what we've done with Frank. Our version of Frank in season 1 had an experience where he talked to Mrs. Graham. Mrs. Graham told him certain things about the mythology of the Stones that book version of Frank never heard. So as we then develop the series, we are then honor-bound to stick with our version of Frank. So this season, we have a Frank who has heard that story of the Stones. He has heard the idea, even if he didn't believe it, he's heard the idea that passing through the Stones and traveling through time was possible. So when he hears that idea again, he can't react the same way that book Frank did. So you're kind of constantly making these kinds of choices. And yes, sometimes it gets heated in the room because people feel passionately on both sides. And my job is to kind of hear those arguments and not fall one side or the other, but try to make what I think is the best show every week.
And in that argument, because we all have it. I mean, I threw a chair at you one night. I don't remember what that was about, but I did. I threw a chair at him.
But you did miss.
I kind of missed on purpose because we had to go to work the next day. But you get heated. Everybody gets passionate about what it is they do, and that's not because we are diametrically opposed to each other, or that we just see things completely differently. It's that we all have these points of things that we love and that we get married to, and it's kind of part of the dialogue, and it's part of the process. It happens on every show. It's not that this one's that different. It's that passion that you see on screen. And if we were all neutral and we didn't get excited about our work, the show would not be what it is.
What I think it's important also because Ron creates an atmosphere where that's okay.
Yeah.
And certainly
the chair part might have been a bit much.
I didn't know I could throw a chair.
You don't get to throw chairs.
Oh, damn it. No, but it's great to know that you can have a creative discussion or even an argument about something, because you're ultimately in a room full of people that are bringing their skills to telling this story. Yeah. And so, especially because Ron and I, we've worked together on the first episode of Outlander was like our 80th episode of television together, or something like that. So I felt like we were starting at a point of trust. And for me, your vision of each episode, you were talking about how each one is so different, and I rely on that so much as I look at each one and we talk about what it needs, because really each one is its own little adventure, and sometimes there'll be things that I can see in a cold viewing of an episode that maybe haven't occurred to you, and then vice versa. I'll try something and you will correct me in saying, no, this is really important later, or I rely on that kind of relationship.
Well, it's important too, because I can, part of the process of editorial is, we put temporary music, a temp track to the show. And as I watch the cut over and over again, and I work with the editors, and I'm hearing this temp track, and you get used to hearing those musical cues. And then you give it to Bear, and then sometimes I get too married to this temporary piece of music because I'm just so used to seeing it. Yeah, and I need Bear. It's actually called Temp Love. And I need Bear to sometimes shake me out of Temp Love and just go, look, you're just in love with that because you've heard it 50 times. It's not that it's really appropriate, it's just familiarity.
But the thing is that we'll all fight tooth and, we really will fight, like, die hard, all of it. Gary with a set, oh my God. I need that wall. Yeah, I'm one to talk, it's true. But at the end of the day, we all have to know the point at which we kind of go, okay, it's your show.
It's your vision.
It's your vision, and he does hold the big picture, and he holds everybody's piece together, and you kind of have to, at the end, you turn it over to him.
So I have to tell you, Ron, I so like this Frank from the series because I understand him better thanks to some of those pieces of information you've allowed him to hear. So with that, and my humblest thank yous and absolute awe of what you all do and what you have all done, I must say we have to say goodnight. The cast and crew of Outlander, everyone. Take a bow. Stand up. Take a hand, and let's take a bow. 1, 2, 3.
Terry, hi. Heather from Outlander SoCal. How are you? I am well. Would you do us a huge favor? Would you sign our banner?